Hi everyone, I'm Casey Horton and I have a question for you. Have you ever been moving through life on a high note, it's been smooth sailing, and then out of nowhere something unpleasant hits you so hard and so fast that it drops you to your knees? You've been left staggering emotionally and mentally. It's unsettling, isn't it? I have another question. How do we make it through these times? Or even better, how do we make it through these times with our lives and our composure still intact? How do we bear up gracefully under the storms of life? That's what I'd like to talk about in this video.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive. With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend this time in your...
We've all had our share of these knockdown moments, and they're hard, aren't they? Maybe it was that phone call you got that brought news that shattered your day, or maybe that story on your local television station that ripped your heart out, or like the day my mother opened her front door to find a police officer standing there bringing news that my dad had just been killed in an automobile accident. These times happen to all of us, and since there's really no way to avoid them, all of us are asking, what do we do about these moments when we don't even know what to think, let alone say, how do we get through it? There are ways, and what I'd like to talk about is not merely surviving these moments, but bearing up gracefully under the storms of life. We can weather the storms of life and even flourish under them. The tools that give us this type of inner strength aren't meant for just those people who are emotionally and mentally elite or advanced, if there even is such a person, because all of us are imperfect. We're in this thing together. None of us were meant to travel solo. Our lives are inseparably connected, and this is the way it should be because we need each other. One of the most powerful tools that will help us get through these times is a tool that will work for anybody, no matter their circumstances. I know this because it's worked for me over and over, and I'm about as imperfect and undeveloped a person as you're ever likely to find. But I want to say right off the bat that even though some of these situations do rip our guts out, life does go on, and it can go on in a way that's better than ever before. No matter how dark the night, the sun does rise again. About a year ago, I had one of the strangest experiences of my life, or rather series of experiences. Over a 2-week period of time, I started passing out left and right. It happened about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 times. My blood pressure, which has always been really good, suddenly started dropping to the point that I was dropping to the ground unconscious. One minute I'd be in the middle of a conversation with somebody, and the next minute I'd be on the ground opening my eyes with this person bent over me, a really concerned look on their face. It was an unsettling experience, and thankfully my doctor figured out really quick what was going on and was able to fix it. But in retrospect, I am actually grateful for what happened, because almost more than anything else, it taught me about making it through these times where life hits us with really hard times and drops us to our knees, just like I was dropping to my knees passing out. Let me tell you about one of those times where I passed out right there in the middle of the day. It happened on a Saturday morning when me and my youngest son and daughter were hanging out in my bedroom. We'd been on our smartphones. My son and I were watching some how-to YouTube videos, and my daughter was making a TikTok video or something. But I got up off the bed to go into the kitchen, made a couple of steps towards the door, and that blackout sensation hit me. My vision started to close in, and even though I could hear my daughter talking to me, it sounded like she was coming from another bedroom. Because this was the 3rd or 4th time I'd passed out, I immediately knew what was happening, and a survival instinct kicked in. A couple days earlier when I'd passed out, I'd hit the corner of a nightstand, cut my head open, and if any of you have ever split your head open, you know that even a little cut can cause a a lot of blood. I didn't want that to happen with my 2 kids there, and so I reached out to grab hold of the corner of the door, stop myself from falling, but it didn't work. One minute I was looking at my daughter and she is over here on the right side. I was looking down at her a little bit. The next minute she was over here on the right side. I was looking up at her and the ceiling. Coming back to consciousness after passing out is a really strange thing. For me, vision would come back first, but with no sound. After that, I'd begin to hear things, first muffled and then finally voices. But through it all, there's no reference point. It takes a while to figure out where you're at, what's going on. And that day in the bedroom with my kids, it took probably 20 seconds, which might not sound like a lot of time, but right there when you're in the middle of it, it's forever, especially for my kids. It scared them to death. One minute I'm standing there talking to them, and the next minute I'm unconscious on the floor. And the next thing that would happen to me was the strangest thing of all, and probably the most interesting as well. After I would regain consciousness, I would be hit with this feeling of guilt, like I had done something wrong and needed to apologize for having passed out and hit the ground. And right now I need to pause for a second in the story, because this is one of the most important things that I've learned through this whole experience. I've been surprised at how many people have told me they've had these same feelings during situations in life like we've been talking about, where they get hit by life and it knocks them to their knees. And how crazy is that? Life rips our guts out, and yet you and I and other people feel like we need to apologize for it, like we've done something wrong. But apparently it happens, and it's quite common. I've learned, or rather life has taught me over and over and over, that when we're dealing with these types of feelings of guilt that doesn't come from something we've done to deserve it, the very best thing that we can do is be gentle with ourselves. That gentleness is a key in dismissing these types of feelings of guilt from our lives. Life keeps teaching me about gentleness over and over, about being soft with ourselves and patient, and giving ourselves a break, refusing to be hard on ourselves when hard things are happening. During these times, we don't so much fight feelings of unwarranted guilt. More or less, we choose instead to let go of them, or to just let them drift away. Feelings of guilt that come when we haven't done anything to deserve them, they're kind of like the gum that gets stuck on the bottom of your shoe. When you try to pull it off, it just stretches everywhere, it gets messy, it's really sticky. Somebody once showed me that if you take a piece of ice and rub it on that gum, it'll make it hard, and then you can flick it right off. Gentleness with ourselves is like ice on the stickiness of these types of feelings of guilt. If we pull at these feelings of guilt and fight them and stretch them, it just gets everything messy. But if we'll take that piece of ice, if we'll take gentleness and apply it to ourselves, these feelings of guilt will usually just fall away of their own accord. The first way we can be gentle with ourselves in the knockdown situations when we're struggling just to keep breathing is to simply understand that sometimes life knocks us to our knees, or knocks us onto our back, or even knocks us out completely. This is a part of life, and sometimes life can knock us down with so much force that it's no longer possible to immediately jump back up because we're struggling just to stay conscious. The world's spinning, we're on the verge of blacking out, just like what kept happening to me during that 2-week period where I had low blood pressure. That Saturday in my bedroom with my son and daughter, for a certain period of time after regaining consciousness, the only thing I was capable of doing was recovering, sitting there and just watching things. Or if you want to put it another way, the only thing I was capable of doing was nothing. Life was no longer about life as usual. My workday had got set back, tasks had to be reorganized. What I had thought I could get done wasn't going to happen anymore. And this is exactly what happens when we get knocked to our knees by these difficult situations. Life is no longer life as usual. Things get set back. There's a period of recovery. Sometimes in life that's what we need to do. Just sit there for a while, being quiet and still, and let someone we love take care of us and take care of things for a little while, and also not feeling guilty about needing that, about being in that situation. And so now we come to the tool I talked about earlier, a tool that can help anybody anywhere to get through these times in a better way, maybe a way that's quicker or more graceful or less painful. And the tool is this: to practice quietness. What do I mean by that? Quietness. I mean to stand still emotionally and mentally and stop moving, stop evaluating and analyzing, maybe stop pondering and asking questions. These are all good things, but for a while, just let go of them. I want to share an example of what I'm talking about, and it's from kind of a personal situation in my own life, but I think it might prove to be valuable, so I'm willing to share that. In the spring of 2016, my father was killed in a terribly violent car accident. When I got the news, I was in a very public place. I was in a library, and what happened is an example of how we can use this principle in life of accepting reality, being gentle with ourselves, and then being quiet up here in our mind, letting go of things. When I was told he had died, the first thought that came into my mind is, my dad's gone, I'm never going to see him again. And then the thought came into my mind, that's okay, let it go for now, you don't need to worry about that right now. Then I remember I actually couldn't physically take in a breath of air. Again, the feeling inside, let it go, your lungs will take over, you'll be able to breathe. After that, I thought, my knees are going weak, I'm going to collapse right here on this floor. Another thought inside of me, it's okay, let it go. There's people all around, somebody will help you if you do fall. And then I had this thought, well, I don't want to put other people out. I don't want to make them attend to me. Then the thought, don't worry about that, Casey. These are good people. Other people will take care of you. Then I remember I actually started to cry, and I'm not a crier. I was in public. I felt embarrassed. I thought, I can't cry in front of anybody. Again, the thought, don't worry about it. Let it go. And what happened is life, or God, or whatever you believe in, kept reminding me in my mind and in my heart that this was one of those times in life where you're getting dropped to your knees. Everything's going to work out, but be gentle with yourself. Keep coming back to a place of calmness and quietness over and over and over again, no matter how many times it happens. There are so many great leaders and spiritual traditions that teach this principle of strength in quietness, that I believe it's a principle that's universal to all of mankind. In the Ayurvedic teachings of India, we learn that there's a gap between the space of our thoughts, a gap where there's silence and quietness. That's the purpose of meditation, to access this gap where there is no movement, no franticness. Traditional Navajo culture has always placed great importance upon this principle of quietness, walking in the way of beauty, or quietness and harmony with our surroundings. I grew up with several Navajo friends, and they valued silence so much that they wouldn't even interrupt me until it was clear I was done talking. They would listen in silence. In the Hebrew Old Testament scriptures, we find teachings in the book of Isaiah that tell us, in quietness shall be your strength. Or in Psalms, be still and know that I am God. I hope you've enjoyed what you've watched here in this last few minutes, but even more than that, I hope that what I've shared can make a difference in your life and help you to get through these times that we all go through. As always, I appreciate you watching, and if you've enjoyed what you've seen, go ahead and subscribe, because I am making these videos for you.